У рамках фестивалю форуму Art Success проводимо інтерв'ю з митцями-учасниками. And then I'm switching into English and starting my conversation with Welly. It's a pleasure to talk with you even in this online format. And at the beginning, I would like to ask you about producing of inclusive art projects. What are the particularities of this kind of work? Maybe you can share some cases of projects you've been done.
Ones that I've done recently, I've actually been in the Ukraine. So I did a project with the British Council with Ukraine, Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. So we did a project, a show that toured around the countries and was due to perform in London this year, but it didn't happen because of the pandemic. So sadly, we didn't see them all, but we're hoping that maybe this will continue and hopefully next year or the year after that we'll be able to get the group back together. So yeah, it's an inclusive company of disabled and able-bodied dancers from all of the different countries. And it was really good fun getting them all together, and they really enjoyed working together. So yeah, that's what I do. A lot of those kind of projects abroad, getting people together and making work, and then they will tour that and perform it in their own countries or abroad as well.
And by the way, how would you define the notion inclusive, speaking about the art projects?
How would I? Oh gosh, it's a big one, that one. Inclusion, I think, is just it's everybody being included in the conversation, in the production, so that yeah, it's not just one group of people that are saying this is what we're going to do. It's everybody being involved in that choice, in that vision, in the making, in the performing of.
Is it hard to gather really diverse people together?
Is it hard? I don't think it's hard. I think so many people want to do it. So, you know, there's a huge community out there all over the world, I think, that meet and have a vision that they want to share and share ideas. And I think I personally love watching different bodies moving together. I find it really, really interesting. I think everybody brings what they bring into the room, into the project, into whatever we're making, and so I find it really interesting to see other bodies being involved in this kind of project.
Tell me more about your experience. How did you start to produce your inclusive projects? Or take part in inclusive projects?
It's a long story, that one. So I met Candoco after I'd lost my leg in 1994, so a long time ago. And they were doing a workshop in my hometown at a rehab centre. And I was really lucky because they asked me to join them and become an apprentice in 1998. So I ended up following the company, being mentored by the dancers, learning how to do everything on tour and how the inclusive practice, how we taught together. And so I was very, very lucky that I got an apprenticeship with the company that was funded by the Arts Council, to help me tour with them and go with them and watch them at work. And then I ended up joining Candoco, which is a company based in London, full-time, and toured with them for 4 years.
I think that an inclusive project may gather both professional and non-professional, disabled and non-disabled performance. Is it easy to work with such a diverse group of artists? Maybe you can share some cases of projects you've been done.
I think so. Over the years, I've done lots of different kind of projects. So sometimes I've taught with, I've worked with people that haven't had any experience, and so we've maybe, if we're working with somebody that hasn't had any experience, sometimes we'd just do a one-day workshop, or we'd do a week's workshop and then do a performance at the end of that. But usually, if we're making something bigger, then we would have more time and maybe have more professionals involved so that there's a kind of more of a diverse sort of understanding of experience in the room so that everybody can kind of come on the same page and be in the same place together. So I think, yeah, usually it depends on the project and what the outcome of the project is. So for example, the project we did in the Ukraine, pretty much most people had some kind of performing experience. So, you know, there was like a level of understanding before we started the project, and we all sort of knew what the outcome was going to be. So everybody'd had some kind of experience in inclusive dance before.
In this context, had you an experience of facing some stereotypes, for example?
I think culturally in some countries we've had really different experiences. Just trying to think to coming to mind. I think we had some Philippines. I remember working with a group of all visually impaired people. So that was really interesting. The whole group was visually impaired. So we had to start on quite a slow, subtle level at the beginning of the workshop. So that's one example of, but oh God, there's so many. I could talk for hours about, but I'm just trying to think. Oh gosh, I can't. Yeah, I can't think of anything. Sorry.
And speaking about your experience of work with performance from different countries, do you think dance can help to have a fight with stereotypes, to be in peace with one each other?
I think so. I think different bodies, different people in a room. There isn't any speaking, so quite often that takes away a huge part of people's insecurities or language barriers. I think moving together is really important, and it's the same as singing, moving, singing. I think anything that's kind of physically sharing some kind of communication together is really, really important. And I think language barriers, cultural barriers quite often go out of the room when we work together. And I think that's quite an important thing in life, really, to have that, because I think we have so many preconceptions of different cultures and who people are and what they think, and actually once you're in a studio working together or you're on a stage together, you're sharing the same human feeling in your body and moving together is so natural. So that's what I love about dancing, that isn't, and you know, that goes out of the picture really, and you just move together.
Is it easy to start dancing?
Is it easier?
Is it easy to start to perform, to dance, especially if you are, for example, non-professional person or disabled person, for example?
I think so, because we all move. So we all move in our whatever way we move. So yeah, I think it's hard to be a professional dancer, because you have to do all the things that you have to do as a normal professional dancer. So you have to tour, you have to be able to be with other people, you have to socialize, you have to want to be on stage in front of people. So I think as a professional dancer, it doesn't make any difference whether you have a different physicality, really. I mean, access wise, there's those issues. So touring, you have to think about access and where you're staying and kind of how you're going to get to places. So that's always a bit of a barrier sometimes, but other places it's easier. But I think generally being a professional dancer, yeah, it's the same if whether you're disabled or able-bodied.
Tell me please more about the audience. Are people ready to watch and or understand inclusive art projects?
I think culturally there's still differences in different places, but I think if we don't do it, then those barriers will always be there. So I think we kind of have to put ourselves out there and go for it. And you know, I've been on stage and I've had bad bad reactions from audience members, as well as really, really lovely reactions from audience members. And I think as a performer, you always have that in the back of your mind, whether what's this show going to be like? Are we going to get some reaction from somebody? And also it depends what you're presenting as well. So if something's kind of quite easy to watch and doesn't confront, then I think the audience finds that easier. But sometimes I think it's good to confront as well. So yeah, I think if it's something that somebody would want to do, then I think go for it. But also, there's repercussions. If you're going to push the boundaries, you're always going to get some kind of reaction from somebody.
Very often we are speaking about the challenge of getting out of the bubble, challenge of a communication with a larger and broader audience. Do you have such an experience?
Can you say that in a different way? Sorry.
I was speaking about the communication with your audience. Maybe you have an experience of communicating with a larger audience, not with the audience experienced with inclusive art projects, for example, but with somebody watching this kind of show, this kind of performance for the first time.
What their reaction or how they okay. I think so. Well, you get so many different reactions from different people. I've performed in lots of different scenarios. So I've performed in really small rooms with like a really tiny audience, and that's quite often that's more confronting, I think, than doing a huge big performance. So for example, I performed at the Paralympics, so that was ginormous, and I actually couldn't see the audience's eyes, so that felt strange for me because I couldn't see them. And I really like having that interaction between seeing people's faces and having you're communicating between you. So I really like that. So I prefer doing smaller performances when I can see the audience. But yeah, different. You just get different reactions from different people, and I think people take from any performance. I think people take what they take from anything, really. They take home what they see and what they want to take away, I think.
In this kind of work, is it important to be supported by an institution, for example?
I think definitely for funding or space, I think it's really, really great to have an institution behind you because of resources and all of those kind of things that you can use. I would say to somebody that wanted to do some inclusive work, then yeah, definitely get in touch with an institution that you think might be relevant or interested in the kind of work that you're doing, and see if they're up for, having space in kind or having some kind of communication with you. So yeah, I think it is. It's really important to have relationships with lots of different bodies. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think it's okay.
Oh, thank you. I hope that was okay. Thank you.